So today, we're going to be talking about Rubrics and Speedgrader with Ann Rannett. And Ann is a lecturer of biological sciences here at UW Milwaukee. She received her PhD in molecular physiology and biophysics at the University of Iowa. And before coming to Milwaukee, taught at St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa. So thank you very much, Ann, for coming today, and welcome.
Thanks, Lane.
Oh, I need my computer, and we'll switch it up. Yeah.
All right, we're working. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming today. I'm going to share with you what I've learned about using Rubrics and Speedgrader in Canvas. I was using this. Oh, we're back. So I used this last fall. I was teaching a upperclassmen and graduate course in biosci, and my students were writing a specifics aims page for me as part of the course. And so I'm going to show you kind of my workflow, what worked, what didn't, and then we'll have some time to play around. So when I first created the assignment, I wasn't working in Canvas as intensely as I ended up. So the students first had this assignment that just lived as an assignment on Canvas. So they had all the information about what they were supposed to be doing on here. And they also had rubrics here. So step one for me was just taking these rubrics that I'd already created in Word and putting them into Canvas. So there's a couple of different ways to get started with this. You can go to the Outcomes tab, and in that tab there's a Manage Rubrics option that will take you where you want to go. Or a cool trick that I learned later was if you look at the URL up here, it's got my course number and then /rubrics. So from anywhere in this course, if I want to skip that double click, I can just do /rubrics. And that will take me to the exact same place. I also learned later that once you have an assignment like submission portal created, you can also do it right there. I'll show you what that looks like. So if we just want to make a new practice assignment, we're not going to worry about what's going on here. Once we create that assignment, okay, so it's going to be a file. Once we create that assignment, we see this Add Rubric button right here, where we could go and add our rubric as necessary. So we have a couple different options as far as just navigating to that location to put in your rubrics. Okay, so once we're here, we then can make our rubrics. I'm going to go back to the original way that I did this. And we're just going to create our rubric. So the default is that you give it some title. So this is going to be our CETL rubric. And you would then go and start editing this first line of the rubric. So our description could be like CETL talk. Thanks, Grammarly. And then we could add a longer description here. So if you have kind of a very black and white type of objective, let's say it's the length of a document, I would have like document length. And then in the long description, I could say 1 page plus or minus 5 lines. That way students could see, and you could remind yourself very quickly as you're grading, like, oh, how long is this supposed to be? And then we can say update our criterion. The default is to give you these different ratings. So it starts automatically as a 5-point scale. You can change this and say, I only want this to be worth 3 points. And then you have 2 big options. You can either use multiple ratings. So I can say, I want to add a rating in the middle, where this is like an okay job. And it defaults to this full marks and no marks, which makes me feel like I'm in a one-room schoolhouse. But so you could like very much delineate these categories into different ratings. But when I was grading, it was writing samples. And so I wanted to basically give them a score for that criteria and then offer them comments. So the first time I did this, I knew that's what I wanted, but I didn't know how to do it yet. And so I built out this whole rubric with all these different ratings for each criterion. It took forever. Then I finally went to grade the assignment, and I discovered that all of that work was for naught because what I really wanted lived over here. Okay, so now I went to an assignment, and I've already added a rubric to this assignment. And you'll notice that now under ratings, it says, this area will be used by the assessor to leave comments related to this criterion. And all those different categories for that criterion have gone away. The way that you do this is you tell it, yeah, I'm gonna change the rubric and you're gonna let me. You come down here on the assignment and you say, I'll write free-form comments when assessing students. This was the magic option that I needed to click in order to give a score plus comments instead of dwelling in all of those different criteria for the different categories. So if I was gonna do it again, what I would do would be to go to my assignment and build my rubric right there. So let's go back to this practice assignment. Build my rubric, and then right away I can tell it, I'll write free-form comments when assessing students. That changes it immediately from those different categories into just points and comments. So then we could say length, update. Okay, that's not a very big thing. That'll be 3 points, add a criterion. I want this to be a new criterion called content. Create criterion. This is important. This is going to be 10 points. And so it'll just kind of keep adding as you go. One really fun thing that I learned was once you have all of your different criteria listed, you can't just shuffle them in space. So let me show you one of my kind of ugly ones. So my first draft rubric, I came in here and I have background, gap in knowledge, hypothesis, rationale. So these are all the content things. And then I got into the technical stuff. Formatting, reference formatting, appropriate references, quality control. And then I went, oops, I forgot to add the item for their goals and objectives. And at this point, I tried to play a game and tried to shuffle them, and there's no option for that. So your options are either start over and get that where you want it in the list of things, or just tack it on to the bottom. And then when you're grading, kind of remember to bounce back and forth. You could play the game with like duplicating the rubric and just deleting some of it and adding it on there. But to me, it just made more sense to just leave it out of order. I'll fix it the next time I teach the class, if I remember. So that is that. Okay, so now you have this rubric created and students are submitting assignments. One thing that I didn't anticipate, but I think is really interesting from the student perspective, is if you have the rubric in Canvas and associated with that assignment, when the student goes to submit the assignment, they'll see the rubric. Here's what it looks like. So let's be a student. Okay, so the student is getting ready to submit draft 1, and this already has the rubric associated with it. And so when they come here to submit their assignment, they can see, oh, these are the criteria that this will be graded using. Maybe for some students, that's like one last reminder, like, oh, she cares about reference formatting. It's in the rubric. Maybe I should double check. I don't know, if I was a student, I would think that was handy, but maybe not. Okay, so the students submit their assignment, and now it's my time to grade it. So let's leave student view. I submitted one assignment as a student, and so now we're going to go into SpeedGrader and grade it. There's lots of ways to get into SpeedGrader. Canvas does this fun thing where when you have something that needs to be graded, it just tells you everywhere. So that's the easiest way to go get it. You can get it from the gradebook. You can go in via assignments to get it. So we make our way into SpeedGrader. Okay, so now we have the student submission over here, and our rubric has populated itself over here. So this is kind of our panel, and this is the student work panel. In order to edit the rubric, edit the scores inside the rubric, we just say view rubric. And you can change the size of these panels so that you can see your whole rubric, but realize the bigger your rubric panel gets, the smaller the student work gets. And so the first time when I was grading student work, I was leaving some comments over here, like, this is awesome. If you have a comment you think you will use repeatedly, you can just say, save this comment for reuse. And then after that, when you're in other students' work, there's just a drop-down option. So if people are using the wrong references or wrong formatting, and this happens over and over, you can really save some time that way. So you can make comments and give scores over here. If you gave longer descriptions, you can see them pop up here, and I'm assuming it looks similar for the students when they're looking at it. So criterion long description, gap in knowledge, clearly stated is the longer information for gap in knowledge. When I first started doing this, I also started directly marking up the student work. So let's say somebody copied and pasted a sentence from somewhere else inappropriately. You can like cross it out and then come over here and say like, stop stealing others' work, okay? Here's one issue that arises. So now I have the student work, and I have my comment, and I have my rubric over here. If I want to see all my comments at one time, they start stealing the size from the student's work that I'm trying to read and trying to grade. If you're working on really big monitors, this is fine. But realize that many of our students are receiving this feedback on tiny screens, like this size or even mobile device. And so the feedback that I got from the students when I gave them this type of feedback was, we can't read your comments on our work because it's tiny for them too. And we can take a look at that in student mode. So what I did moving forward was I stopped making comments on the actual work and just started leaving all of my comments on the rubric itself. Okay, so I'm going to leave that comment. I'm going to add another comment here. Excellent use of bold text. Okay, so I'm going to be done grading this. I'm going to give scores here. Not -2, not 21.
Very generous.
Right? It's that part of the semester. Sure, you get a grade. You get a grade. Okay. And then I'm going to save. And so once I hit save, depending on the settings that I didn't show you yet, sometimes that grade will auto-populate up here. If I tell it, hey, use this rubric to grade the assignment on the assignment page, that number will jump up there. But usually I forget to do that like this morning. And so then I just have to scroll down and see, oh, they got 19, put the 19 there. And then that will auto-save as I move to the next one. Yeah.
If you have it set to auto-populate that, can you override that?
Ooh, I don't know. Let's try it.
All right.
We'll try that next. Okay, so now I'm going to say, like, come see me regarding plagiarism. I hope I spelled that correctly. Okay, so now I have graded that student work. So now let's go back and be test student and see what it looks like. An interesting thing I've discovered when leaving SpeedGrader, so a student comes to your office and they're like, hey, let's talk about this thing. And so you pull up their work and it shows up in SpeedGrader, okay? For me, it was difficult to exit SpeedGrader and get to an appropriate page of Canvas. The most intuitive thing was to click right here, but that's gonna take me to the grade book and show that student everyone's grades. Clicking up here would take me back to the assignment. That's a reasonable place to go. And clicking up here will take me to the home page of this Canvas course. To me, I was like, it's the big button, I should click here, but it takes you to the grade book, which is not usually where you want to be. Okay, so let's go back to our home page and view the feedback from the student's perspective. Ooh, look, I have a grade. Okay, and so I see my grade, what it's out of, and I see that I have some comments. Okay, so that was the student's comment. There's my comment. Ooh, that's creepy how it pops up right there. And now, let's see. So here's what it looks like on the student end. View feedback. So my comments I can see here, but now I can't see my text because it's so small. And students did not like interacting with this part of the window. They liked looking at the rubric where they could clearly see the criterion, my comments, and the scores here.
How did you know that?
I asked them. Yeah. I was like, what does it look like on your end? And they said, everything on the document is really hard to see. I'm guessing they were on mobile devices because honestly, I can see it on this small screen, but on a phone, it might look totally different. Okay, so we wanted to see what it would look like if we could override it or not. So let's go back to another assignment. So now we have draft 2. There's already a rubric sitting here. We're gonna edit the rubric and we're gonna say, use this rubric for assignment grading. So this is the option that we would use if we wanted to auto-populate. Okay, so update rubric. Now let's be a student and submit it. Submit an assignment, let's find file. It's thinking really hard. Oh, because it's a video. Let's choose a different file. We're gonna be here all day. A document would probably be ideal. Here we go. I'm gonna give it about 10 seconds to get this uploaded and then we'll refresh in case that movie is still hanging out somewhere in the ether.
It is a slow internet day.
Right? I can't wait till my lecture later. It'll be so much fun. Okay, so my assignment has successfully submitted. So now let's go pretend to be a teacher again. And look, something else to grade.
You're so excited.
Okay, so we're gonna view our rubric. We're going to balance our page here. Okay, so yeah, this is great. This document is unrelated to the assignment, but it is good. Oh, this is what it looks like if you had a saved comment.
Oh, that's really cool.
This portion of the document needs to focus on concrete things that would change in the real world.
And you can change that, like you can.
Yeah,
compare
so I
and
could
you
edit
can
it.
make
Yep.
Can you use both the rating criteria and comments? Because those comments at the bottom, we can't say.
So I believe if you are still using different ratings, there is still a place for comments with each category.
It looks like a little dialog box right underneath the score, so you can put a little.
Right, yes, I've been doing that, but I mean connected to a specific criteria, not just an overall comment box.
Well, it'll go under the
Yeah.
specific criteria that you have, but it won't let you save. So you can comment, but you can't
They
save.
can't save it like this for future.
Right.
But if that's something you want, you should put a request out there. That's because that's a good idea to.
It would be slick.
Yeah.
It would be really helpful.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's comments at the bottom.
yeah, so I gave it a score and it moved it up here, but now like, oh, I changed my mind. Hey, I would love to have that window back. Thank you. Let's say they submitted it late, but there's nothing in my rubric that accounts for that. So let's say like -5, you get 20 points. Yep, you can override that. That's like, yeah, I would typically deal with things like that in the quality control area. So when I have something that they can't gain points for, but they lose points for, I just put it in as a item that's worth 0 points. And then you can add negative points here.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So quality control, spelling. Oh, I misspelled spelling. Why don't my students tell me about this. That's hilarious. Okay, so I deserve to lose points for that.
You make a mistake the whole semester and nobody
Right? And nobody tells you. That's great. So you can do negative points. And so that dropped my score down to 23, which then updated misspelled spelling.
They probably let you do it eventually.
Probably. Like, she's so silly. Right? Yeah. Okay, I think those are all of my high points. Oh, here's something else that I learned as I was prepping for today. So you're in the assignment, and this would be like something I would want to do, right? So I realized that I have misspelled spelling. And so I come in here and I can edit this rubric on the fly. It yells at you if you've already started grading with it. But I don't know what it would actually do if I like change point values. That would scare me to do. But one thing that you need to be careful with is if you decide that I don't want to use this rubric, I want to use a different rubric, you come and you're like, oh, well, I want to remove a rubric. And so you click this delete right here to remove it from the assignment. No, this deletes the entire rubric from your course. Okay, so you do this and you're like, no, and it warns you, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, get rid of it. I don't want it on this assignment. But then it's gone. So this was our second draft, and it's gone. So my first draft and my final draft and my test are there, but that one is gone. Okay, so sometimes you can play the game where you undelete things.
Notice the sometimes and
Sometimes.
right there.
Not always. If you go to this undelete, like, oh, look, there it is. I want this back. I click restore. Yes, please give this back to me, Canvas. And so it thinks about this. And last week, right before I met with Lane about today, I learned this and was like, oh, put it back. And it was there. And then I tried to repeat it with Lane there, and it deleted. And we told it to restore. And then it's somewhere in the Canvas ether still. It has not come back in the last week. So undelete's a little sketchy. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
That's why it's not in the KB docs, because it's one of those things that Canvas has, but it's unsupported because it's buggy
Yes.
like this. So
that's insider info.
Yeah.
just to be aware that it's maybe a fail-safe, but it's a fail-safe that, like, it's a net that has holes in it. Sometimes you fall in the part that has all nice and cushiony, and the other time you fall right to the cement.
Yeah, because it isn't back. It isn't back in my rubrics list. It said it was restoring, but it has not come back yet. So just realize that if you want to remove it from the assignment, like just making a new assignment would probably be the safest way to do that. Because otherwise it might just disappear. It'll be sad. Yeah.
And you may have said this, I was responding to a student. Can you copy a rubric from one section of your course to another?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, so this is just one of my blank courses that I play in, and I just went in and I copied my rubrics from my actual course into here.
But within the course, if you...
Oh, within the course.
Yeah.
I think so. I think you can duplicate a rubric. Edit, delete. So if you create a new rubric,
I think you have to create a new assignment and then it'll let you pull the rubric.
oh yeah, so you could make an assignment and pull a rubric from your rubrics onto the assignment.
Okay.
But just duplicating, I don't see that as a great option.
Well, it's the same idea. I just wanted to know if you wouldn't have to...
Yeah.
If you could move it over and do stuff, yeah, but you would move it because you had a new assignment, not because you just felt like moving
Right.
it around.
But if you wanted to like have like a first draft and a final draft, it doesn't look like there's a fast way to copy that first draft and then add to it for the final draft.
I think if you bring it in, bring in the old one, make edits, and then you can save it as something else.
Oh yeah, that would be an option.
Okay.
So it's not clean, it's not clear or clean on how you do it.
Right.
But that's one of the things with rubrics that I found, is that it's one of those tools that they need to do some really serious thinking on it. Still, there's lots of little bugs and weirdness with it. So
if we edit, yeah, because then you can change okay, so that's how you'd have to do it. You would make an assignment, add the rubric there, and then you can give it a new title and play with it there.
Yep.
And then it would save.
Do you want to show them where the little comment boxes are?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Not on this one, on the one that.
Yeah, so we'll just take that away and give all those things there. Use this for grading. Which one are we in? We're in the practice assignment. Yeah, that's fine. Leave different. Okay. probably have to submit an assignment to it to see what it looks like, but that assignment hasn't been given.
What if you do test student? It might show up in test.
But I haven't assigned it yet,
Oh.
so let's just add these.
By the way, in SpeedGrader, even if a student hasn't submitted the assignment, you can go ahead and open up the rubric and look at it.
Oh, okay. Okay,
And give them
so.
a 0. I would have done it.
Oh, see, I've seen that, but only with other students already having submitted.
Oh, yeah, I haven't tried that. That was when no one submitted.
That was the wrong one.
Oh, and I did discover recently you assign a 0 and then the student can still submit late.
Even if there's a grade.
Even if there's a 0 grade on it, the student can still submit late.
Okay, so we have no submissions, but we can view our rubric. And so now.
There's the little
get
box.
5. Oh, okay.
And then you can type whatever you want,
But you can't save the comments.
Okay.
So you
So-
can keep a separate document and copy and paste, but you can't save them.
You don't get the drop down possibility. Okay. It is nice to just.
What's a
click
little
it.
circle? What's that little?
That's Grammarly.
Oh, it's Grammarly.
Yeah.
Oh, there's something new that was
No, it's just-
exciting.
Just monitors me, but miss that spelling error.
I have a big question.
Yeah.
So I've only been using this for one assignment this semester to kind of get used to
Yeah.
it. And I've been using it as a text box that I type into with a word count. But Canvas doesn't tell me what the word count is.
Interesting.
So I've been copying and pasting into a Word document. Is there any way to get around that?
Ooh, I've never done it with word count. Mine is always just a page length because that's how it's formatted. If they sent it as a Word, if they uploaded it as Word, you would still have to download that file to get that
Exactly. And I'm
capability.
trying to just have it right there in Canvas.
Right.
Tell them to type in the word count when they submit it.
Right? Put it on them to like, hey, go to Word, do the word count,
Yeah.
screen cap it, and then add that as a picture. Put it in their hands. They could game that though, right? Because
Yeah,
they
that's the
could
problem.
they could add or remove
I
words.
mean, it just seems like as when you're typing in text boxes very often, it gives you a word count. It seems like
Right.
Canvas should just pop up the word count in a text box.
That would be nice.
Okay, so
It doesn't exist as I know.
does not exist as anyone knows.
Maybe
Okay.
so.
I did find a workaround for that where you can click in edit
Uh-huh.
for your student's assignment. You can see the word count and then make sure you click cancel, not save, because then it says that you edited it. So if you,
Oh.
you can click in, it gives you the word count.
Where is that?
So if you're in an assignment, if you're looking at a student's assignment, there's an option, I think it's on the kebab somewhere, you can edit a student's entry.
Is it discussions?
In the discussion.
Discussions.
Oh, okay.
Discussions give you a word count. That's interesting.
And then, I don't know, like a
So they have
attached
the
document,
technology.
I don't think it works that way. I haven't played with that, but I know in discussions it did.
Huh. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you could edit.
Yeah, here it is.
discussions.
I haven't played with it here to look at the
Yeah.
word count.
Yeah, because you do have the option to download the annotated version of it,
Or the original version.
or the original. Yeah, that would be over here.
Or
to
copy and
download that.
paste, yeah.
Right. But I don't see an
There's nothing that's
inherent
native.
word
in
count
there.
now.
Well, and you can download all the files together, so you could download them all, open
Yeah.
them all, do a quick check.
Mhm.
It's a pain.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of extra clicks.
But Sue's suggestion of like putting it on them to put it in, and then you could spot check. You can kind of gauge
You can
it.
usually tell by
Yeah.
Right.
what
You can
the
eyeball
word
it.
count is real or not.
Right, but if it's in a text box, that's the point. It's not having to do a page, you have to do it in a text box.
But still, leaving it on them, they can copy and paste it into a Google Doc or a Word
Right,
doc.
and some of them have done
Yeah.
it just on their own.
Mhm.
Right.
That's good.
Plus you give them this, help them learn the skill of checking their word count.
Yeah.
Transferable skills, right?
Right.
Right.
Are you? Is there?
That's all I have,
Yeah,
unless
was
others
there
have
any
questions for me.
today? For,
Sorry, I came late. When you grade in the rubric, that partial window on the right side, the detour, you can see the whole square rubric.
Yeah.
Is there, you know, you have to go slide.
Yeah.
And then pop up to different windows.
So the best way to do it is on a really big monitor. I have like a 24-inch monitor in my office, and that's life-saving because doing it on my Surface, like, look how small that text is over there. I have some relatively young eyes, and that's hard to see. So no, it does not pop up in a separate window. You're locked into that one browser window. You can toggle it back and forth, But yeah, you lose rubric in the name of finding or seeing the document. Yeah, it's not perfect. Large monitor for the win.
No, you can open them as two different tabs too, and toggle between tabs.
You could do
That's
that.
another way to do it.
Yeah. Or you could just download the document and then have the rubric, right? If I downloaded this document, then I can do one of these. And then I can see the whole thing and all my comments.
Is that what you meant by tabs? Like you? Like,
No, I'll have two Canvas tabs open, and so I'll read in one tab, and I'll so you can either split your screen that way, or you can go back and forth between the document, which is on one tab, and the rubric, which you open up wider on the other tab.
Okay.
Right, so we can.
But then you got to go back and forth.
But if so if you have already, okay. Then you could even have it on 2 different monitors. That's
Right.
that's really interesting.
But I'll sometimes do that for discussion board posts, especially if they're building on discussion board posts, because they'll have the discussion board open in one tab and the gradebook open in the other.
Okay.
So that I can,
Interesting.
Really handy to get 2 monitors.
Yeah.
I sometimes use 3, so just.
It's too much.
No, it's not. Never. Never.
I'm gonna bring one from home.
Yeah, that's it.
I've even done like my tablet for some on my screen in one tab.
Yeah.
Up in my 2 windows.
Yeah.
What has your students' feedback been on you've given us some idea, but like on the comments and stuff on your documents and the rubrics, like what do they like? What do they not like? What is have they been finding it useful?
They needed a little help to find the rubric comments. So from their view, it takes one more click to actually get this view. But once they figured that out, it was all right. They preferred the comments to be on the rubric instead of on the document itself. It was easier to view them that way.
So you would do like some cross-outs, or what would you?
Right. So when I started, I would just like make comments right in the text where they were doing it. Which to me, that was kind of just how I had done it before. I had used track changes in smaller classes. And so as I went through the semester, I converted from making those comments on the document to in the rubric, because that's how they prefer to receive them.
So now you don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
So if you're doing it just in the rubric, how, my question, how is the student going to know which area or what thing you're working on?
Right. So that's a little bit of a tricky part. So for this type of document, right, with only one page and with like a very specific format, I would tell them like your significance, right, which they know should be down at the bottom, like this is the problem here, or like in A1, you don't have a dependent variable defined. So for this type of document, that worked because it was only one page. They knew where each of those items should be on the page. But if it was like a 5-page document, you would have to give them a lot more context about what you're talking about.
A professor who's asked me, she's doing long papers.
Yeah.
She's running right into that problem.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. You could have students add like line numbers to the document before they upload it, so that you could say like line 91, here's the issue.
Or say page 3, paragraph 2.
Right.
Go from there, but you'd say that in your rubric comment.
Right. Okay. So you would have to give them much more indication about where in the document you are. For me, it was not an issue with a 1-page paper.
I have a question about rubric analytics. So if you're doing all this, where do you go to say, oh, students did great on this on this item, 4 on this one?
Yeah, I didn't play that game at all.
Do you have to build it into outcomes first and then feed it up into your outcomes, or does anybody know? Because that was something in D12 you could very easily access.
That's a brilliant thing for you to study, Sue. Because that's an option. You can feed this, you can link these with your mastery paths. Yeah. And that's the only way I could think of to do that, because otherwise there's really no analytics built in with that.
Okay. So you can't just click on rubric analytics and say, okay, criteria 1, 2, 3, they were great, 4, 5, 6, they're terrible.
That is such a great idea. And I think that's what Mastery Paths is trying to do, but I've never had anyone put to play with that with me on that. So that's a great study assignment that you made for yourself. No, right. It's something that I would look into.
Well, it would be useful because when you talk about assessment, it would be very helpful for that.
Absolutely, yeah. To be able to pull out the data on that rubric would be really.
Yeah, I don't remember running into anything
Okay.
like analytics, but let's
Nope.
see. So this is the actual course that had stuff in it.
Maybe under instructor.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think the Learning Mastery Gradebook, from what I remember of that, is going to give you the analytics like I think that you're talking about. But that's a really
You have
good.
to link it, yeah.
But it's a really good idea that they could. I don't see why they couldn't do.
Yeah.
So it would be not that difficult.
Because like on the quizzes, it'll tell you
Yeah, those analytics.
That you can
like,
see
how it
easily.
discriminates and who's getting it right.
Good question. Is there anybody else have a question?
Have you ever played with the audio? So getting audio feedback and have students responded at all? Well,
I haven't. No, I did a couple of video lectures because of the snow days this semester, but those were just in there like as movie items.
So if maybe you know this, Lane, if I left audio feedback and said, this is such a great paper, here's what I love about it, here are a few things you could do students listen
Love
to
it.
that and
They
how
love
does it show up?
They love it. They love it. They love it. I used to do this in Madison when I was teaching. I had blended course, so I didn't see them as much. And I talk, as maybe you've heard, I can hear, I talk faster than I type. I can go a mile a minute. So I can get a lot more content in for a lot less time, right? And so I was able to give students just kind of a blow by blow. And I would say on page 2, paragraph 2, this was a really great idea. On page 3, though, you didn't follow that up. You were kind of weak on your supporting evidence. And I just walk through, and I had some notes already prepped, and I would walk through and I'd give really elaborate feedback for a lot less amount of time. And the students, they really, really like that. They would comment to me, it's like, oh, we just love the audio feedback because we can hear in your voice whether or not you're being encouraging or you're really being frustrated.
Yeah,
They can hear the inflection. They can hear a lot more data versus just the text. And so they like that. And I kind of not talked about that too much because for a long time, Canvas was still using Flash for their media player, but now they're on HTML. And so it's a lot easier to use that. And that's one of the things I would definitely think about doing is doing just some audio feedback. And it'll take a little while at first to kind of get your cadence, to get your kind of flow worked out. But once you get it going, you're going to be going pretty fast, and you might have some interesting, and I can show you how to do that.
So you just would hit that microphone?
You just hit the microphone, and then you turn off the camera.
Well, there's one that seems like
there I
audio
am.
and that's
Yep.
video.
So you click on webcam, and then say no video, and now it's just audio.
Wow.
And if you click on webcam again, see if they
Here, we'll look at
that's just the
later.
camera. Oh, hi. Yeah, there you go. I don't see. I haven't seen a screencast for this one,
Oh, that.
but
Well,
that
you
would
can
be.
upload media, so that would.
You can upload stuff. I'm just trying to. How fast can you get it? But definitely an audio recording was what I was using that on, and that was in D2L. Yeah, definitely that's something to think about. And then that just is a little media file that uploads in the comments area underneath.
I can support what I did it at Pitt with students, and they really do, and you can do it so fast.
Yeah,
And they liked it, and since it was such a huge class, they really felt like, oh, she's talking to me.
Right.
exactly.
And it was that extra level.
Yep, and I love that. Like it's more, you bring in, it's more, community of learning. You're making yourself more personable, especially in an online or blended format where you're a little bit more removed from your students. Or in a big classroom as well, you can get a lot of really robust feedback, even with just your inflection and how you're saying that. It doesn't become just like the compliment sandwich.
Can you start and stop the recording so you can look through the document
And
or
more
you have
than
to
one recording.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a one-shot deal.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that don't make it perfect. Don't let
Right.
don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. And just have the saying, oh, whoops, I kind of would argue, maybe talk a little bit, just kind of change your mind. It's okay. But just kind of have this, you'll get going. Be okay with having a couple mistakes. You can always delete it and not use it if you really think it was bad, and keep it at 5 minutes, because once beyond that, you're going to lose their attention anyways.
Can you just show me again where you started this media comment?
Yeah, so in the rubric for the assignment, and any assignment has this add a comment thing.
Okay.
So it was
So it's
down
below
here,
that. Okay.
the little play button, media comment.
And then you'll want to turn off the camera. You'll click on
Unless you
webcam.
want that really
Yeah.
not attractive.
You could, but does it make it too big? Probably doesn't play good, well, for everybody if you leave the camera on?
It's just like, I mean, it's just a picture of you talking then, I mean, which is,
Wear your pajamas.
yeah.
Right.
Exactly. It's just one of those things that it takes the focus, it puts the focus on you, where you want them to be looking at the
Well,
document.
that makes
The
sense.
other side.
That
A
makes
file attachment, and then this
Voice to
is,
That's speech.
if I wanna
recognition.
talk.
That's voice to text.
So
Yeah.
I can talk my comments in like I do in my
Absolutely.
phone.
Yeah.
And you can add punctuation.
It's really
And that's
good
best
too.
in Chrome,
You can
isn't
say
it?
period
It's
or
best-
comma.
Isn't it best in Chrome?
And it only works in Chrome currently.
It works really well.
Or,
That
but
is
Fire,
slick.
so it's really supposed to be, it's actually Chrome.
Okay,
It's a Chrome feature that Canvas is plugged into. Firefox is getting this tool. It's not there yet, but so it only works in Chrome. It'll do periods and commas. I haven't checked semicolons, but, and then it'll pop it into the comment box and you can edit it as you like afterwards as well, before you click submit.
I have a question about analytics again. So you know in how it's useful to know if your students actually looked at the feedback that you left them. Is there a way to do that?
I thought I remember seeing that, yes, you can see it. I think there's going to be there's an item that says viewed, but I can't remember where it is
Okay.
right now. That's
And
why.
you know how in the Dropbox and D12 you could say if feedback was, you could see if
Yeah.
feedback was, and then when
It
students
shows
say, I don't,
The upper right, I think.
Oh,
if they
SpeedGrader.
viewed
Up there
Yes.
in
it'll tell
the
us when they
SpeedGrader.
viewed it.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, yeah, student view document, okay.
where is it?
Right up here.
Right underneath
Oh,
me.
okay, oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
So
it.
that's super helpful when students are saying, I don't get it, but you never looked at anything you said.
Right.
And
Or
that's
they looked at the feedback 5 minutes before the next assignment that built on that.
Oh, yeah, there,
Yeah.
yeah, that too,
Yeah.
yeah.
and also from like when I was teaching as well, that being able to give that data to say, hey, look, you didn't even look at the feedback, or you looked at the feedback 5 minutes before the next assignment is due. These are some of the problems you're having. And when you do that intervention with the student, but you have some little data points, at least I found the students were a little less recalcitrant from like making that change, that they felt a little bit more open to making change, because it looks like it's not just you attacking them. It's like saying, hey, look, I've looked into this and you're struggling here because of this. And they're like, oh, you have some data. You've looked into this. You've thought about this before you've attacked me. It's more of just now it's you're trying to help me out. You're thinking, you're working through the data, and having that data point really seemed to make them more open to change.
Yeah.
So again, that's just from my students.
I just did a little test. So it's saving the first time that I viewed the document. So if they like went back and looked at it again, you would still see that earlier one.
Cool. Any other questions? Thank you, Anne.
Yeah.